Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I really wanted to talk about how do you actually write an email to a professor for graduate school admission. This is part of my Thesis Help series. I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. You can look me up. Anyway, so I want to get into, how do you actually write an email to a professor for graduate school admission? So the first thing is what you should do is look to see, first of all, before you actually contact them, is actually look to see what you want in a potential PhD supervisor or PhD advisor. It's really important to sort of think about that. There's all sorts of different ways to think about it. Do you want a younger professor, for example, that might be more likely to publish? Those are assistant professors, if you didn't know. They're more likely to publish rapidly, but they're going to be really stressed out. They're not going to have a lot of time for you. Maybe they might have more time for you. I don't know. You might look for a full professor. They're going to be much more prestigious. They're going to have lots of different publications. That's what you should be looking for, is publications and the quality of the publications. Sometimes a long list of publications doesn't necessarily equal the same thing as really quality publications. You also want to look for where they did their training, for example. You should look for what actually you're interested in. It's really incredibly important for your interest to be overlined and all that kind of stuff, right? So I've got a bunch of videos, if you look at the Thesis Help series, that's going to tell you all about, what to look for and things like that. So how do you actually write an email to a professor for graduate school admission? The first thing is always focus on research and what they are doing. If it's not tailored to what they're doing, often, I hate to say it, but often it'll just kind of get pushed to the side. I'm not going to really pay attention to it if you're not even going to take the time to look to see what I'm doing, what I'm interested in. Did you read my stuff? All that kind of stuff is going to be really important. And to be honest, they're not going to care for all these other kind of things that what you're done in the past. You're on student committees, all this kind of stuff. I don't really care so much unless you're highly accomplished or you're a superstar. So for example, you were on the Harvard Law Review, right? That's going to be really cool and exciting for me. I might be curious about that. But in general, if it's just this and that, and I don't really, to be honest, I just don't care. I'm going to screen through that, and I'm not going to be all that curious about what you're doing. The other thing that you should be doing is make sure that you're very, very polite and respectful. Don't use hey, don't use what's up, don't use anything like that. It's always write dear Dr. So-and-so, comma, get into the meeting, I'm politely inquiring about doing some research with you. I really enjoy what you're doing in these particular things here, and this is no pressure here what I'm doing. There's no pressure with this email. I'm just saying I really like what you're doing, and if you want to carry on the conversations, please just reply back to me at your convenience, and that's it. Something really simple along those lines. It's going to be the best thing. The other thing is, make sure if you want to email your professor for graduate school admission, don't sort of be looking for what they can do for you, right? So don't be emphasizing, do you have, tuition stipends? Do you have resources? Do the professor have resources? Do they have time? I don't care about that, frankly, to be honest. You should be looking into that. All that stuff's on a university's website, wherever it is. My institution's all there. You can see all that information. You should be able to find it. Maybe far down the relationship, I might help you out at that moment, but it's not what I'm looking for. You have to be always thinking about what the professor is looking for, what you can actually be of service to me, right? So if you found out what I was interested in, for example, and you found out I was interested in innovation, for example, and I was interested in organizational learning, well, you might look to see what those things are and then say, well, I have this interest. I know programming, for example. If this if you need somebody to do programming, I can do all of this for you. And in fact, what would be really interesting if you just go and actually just do it for me, do a small thing for me and send it to me at the same time and say, oh, I really noticed what you're doing here. I reanalyzed the data and this is what I found. If you can do that and you can give some insight to me before you even actually approach me, I'm going to be like ecstatic at that moment, because I know that you're a go-getter and you're going to actually do your job versus somebody that's going to be always thinking about themselves. So you have to be thinking about, how you can actually help the professor. We're really busy. We don't have a lot of time. And we don't necessarily want to sit there and sort of walk you through things. We want to make sure that you're going to be a person that's going to be able to do something and do it well for us, right? That we can rely on you. It's the same with getting a job, right? It's the same thing. People don't want to train somebody. They want to see if they can actually work with them, right? So that's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. All the rest of it, you can get all that information on any institution's website, whatever you're interested in. What the stipends are, resources, things like that. Everything else is there. You can find all of that stuff. But you have to be tailoring to myself or a certain other professor, and then I'm going to be starting to vouch for you, right? So if you're an undergrad, for example, and you want to work with me at my institution, you can just simply email and say, I really like what you're doing, super excited about this, I really enjoyed all this kind of stuff. I notice what you're doing is this. I have this interest here. I would love to do this for you. And let me know how I can help you out. And please reply back to me. And that would be a really simple, nice, email. And if you even went to the fact of actually going through and doing something for me in advance, I'm going to be really, really helpful really, excited to reply and help you out in any way that I can, right? So that's how you actually write an email to a professor for graduate school admission. That's how you think about how to actually do that. You're always thinking about the professor and what they're going to want and not what you want. That's going to get you a lot further than you are just thinking about what you want and sort of asking generic questions. That's not going to get you anywhere, right? So that's it. Hopefully you like it, and hopefully this really helps you out with getting into your graduate school program, helping you out with getting into research and all that kind of stuff. Again, check out the Thesis help videos. There's lots of stuff there to help you out. So take care. Have a wonderful day, and looking forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.